common tendency today that we're going to be talking about is taking more dinks out of the air and avoiding taking that step back. I would say it takes a higher skill set to be able to really get comfortable with leaning and taking balls out of the air than it does taking a step back. But I mean, do know that it's an easier way to guard your feet. It's an easier way to really cover all this space. Obviously it limits the movement. So I think from a defensive standpoint, when you're dealing with an offensive dink or when somebody's pushing you back, if you're not as mobile, or maybe you are mobile and you just want to cover your feet, this is an easy task to really make this play much more efficient. Kyle, things that you see with people taking a step back, or talk about maybe over-leaning or necessary lean versus unnecessary?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about the type of dink that's going to be coming at us, if our opponents are being very aggressive and playing a very linear ball, if I were to step back on a ball that's coming in this area here that's linear, I'm going to get pushed badly off that kitchen line, right? So as my opponents dink very aggressively with backspin or topspin, the best thing for me to do is stay in here and hold my ground so that that difficult dink can be most easily handled. I think the reason that the people often avoid it is it feels a little bit different than a normal dink, right? It's a volley, but it's not one where we're trying to be aggressive with, because generally speaking, the ball is lower than the net. So if we were to try to speed this up, we're hitting up on it, and we'll often miss in the net or hit it up into our opponent's strike zone.
That is called being ambitious. So keep in mind too, anytime that we're leaning and taking dinks out of the air, there is such thing as a necessary lean and unnecessary. Necessary is a ball that is in your bubble. It's when your arm's bent, and it's when it's nice and comfortable. You see how my tushy is not sticking out here? When I get in this unnecessary lean area, then my tushy starts sticking out. I start fishing. I start kind of taking the bait to a certain degree. It's very difficult to have control on dinks out of the air when you're leaning, or I like to say overcasting. Another thing we're going to touch on as well is talking about different zones. So from my knees down, this is my red zone. From my knees to my hips, this is my yellow zone. From my hips and above, this is my green zone. Okay? I would say that we should be looking to lean and take balls out of the air in yellow, but not take balls out of the air in red. So really focus on categorizing what balls to take out of the air and what balls to take a step back on.
So the idea is, yeah, if a ball's in red, most of the time, if we were just to let that ball bounce, we would still be able to maintain our position without having to get pushed off that line. In yellow, if I let this ball bounce because I'm not comfortable here, now I'm pushed badly off the line and my opponent is winning the positioning battle.
If you're enjoying this instructional content, do me a solid. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn those notifications on.
Okay guys, so the first drill that we're gonna do, I'm gonna take on the role of teacher, and Tyson's gonna be the student. So I'm gonna be hitting more pressurized, a little bit more aggressive, pushing type of dinks. And he's gonna be practicing holding his ground, only taking a step back when it makes sense, but trying to take as many balls out of the air as that volley dink that he can without over leaning, locking the arm, and getting off balance, okay? So here we go. All right. Pressure you a little bit, get it at your feet.
Yeah. And so Kyle, you're obviously aiming a little deeper in the kitchen, correct?
Absolutely. So I'm trying to go near where that kitchen line is. I'm trying to make him uncomfortable. I want to have him make that difficult decision of, does he need to get a step back? He's going to have to play an awkward ball off a half volley.
Yeah. And what I'm finding here too is that, you know, if I see the ball early, if I gauge the ball trajectory, then I have plenty of time to really recognize if I should be taking this out of the air, taking this off the bounce. But from an efficiency standpoint, you know, if I can keep myself stationary and take these balls out of the air, that makes more sense than to be scrambling, than to be off balance or taking too many steps.
And as I see Tyson holding his ground, and I see him taking more and more of these volley dinks out of the air, what am I feeling? My target's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So just by showing that your instinct is to hold your ground and take a ball here, you're making your opponents feel the pressure of making their dinks into a smaller target constantly. Right. If he would be dancing around back and forth, especially as I'm hitting those push or linear dinks, my target is way bigger and I feel like I've got him on a string and can move him left and right.
Just like what Kyle said, I mean, visually it's much more pleasing to be dinking to a lake versus a pond. When I'm leaning in and I'm making this kitchen look small, visually there's some added pressure there. But when I'm scrambling, taking a step back, dancing, then Kyle's thinking, well, shoot, I got this big area to dink in. It doesn't put a lot of visual pressure on me. So times on when I would take a step back would be when I'm finding that I'm dealing with a ball in red and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, shoot, I'm kind of finding myself getting overextended. I don't know if I should take it out of the air or take a step back. When you find yourself being indecisive and you're dealing with a ball in red, there's nothing wrong with buying yourself time and taking a step back. And keep in mind that as I take a step back here, Kyle, I'm gonna have you dink to my left foot. Dink to my left foot here. It's in my red zone. I'm gonna take a step back and then basically just use my dominant foot as an anchor, keep it there, make one little adjustment, and then reposition and get my hips facing back there. So it's one little small adjustment. And I'm recognizing that right away. Okay, maybe take that out of the air. Take that out of the air. If it gets too low, that's when I'm taking a step back. Once I feel like, I'm in this zone, there's nothing wrong with buying yourself some more time. So Kyle, let's just have you push, I'll lift. And then we can change roles here. I'm lifting. See how my lifting dink is shallow? It's high. It's not overly high though, but I'm trusting my margin for error.
And as the pushing dinker, notice how I'm waiting for that ball to bounce, sit up at its apex to where I can go through it more linearly. If I were to take that ball right off the bounce as a half volley, I'm not going to be able to have that linear ball trajectory. I'm going to have to lift. So one of the problems that we see sometimes is people try to, what we call push a push.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, they try to push a push. So if Tyson were to play an aggressive ball to me, and I try to play aggressive back right off the bounce, there's really no margin for error there. So I only want to be playing an aggressive or push dink when I'm dealing with something that's a little more defensive or neutralizing, where I can wait for that ball to sit up at the apex and move through my hips linearly. Gonna do the same thing here. Look at the backhand side. Watch what Tyson does here.
So I'm still pushing, Kyle's still lifting. We're keeping the same theme of the drill, just switching sides. I'm taking some out of the air. Maybe I'm taking a step back. Beautiful. And also too, most of the balls that I hit here are gonna be in a neutralizing reset area. Last thing I want here, obviously, is to be hitting a lifting that's a little higher, that's a little deeper, that Kyle can take out of the air.
And remember, at the core, what is the volley dink, right? The volley dink is not an offensive shot, right? It's a shot where we hold our ground, where we're gradually trying to make our opponent's target smaller, right? Just because we're taking this out of the air, we want to resist the instinct to think, okay, let's speed it up, let's be aggressive.
Right.
This is a ball that's lower than the net. If we were to try to be aggressive and speed this up, we would be forced to hit in an upward angle, giving our opponents the chance to then hit down on us. So the intent is really the same as a normal dink that would bounce. It's just this ball, and being willing to take this ball, helps our positioning be continually or consistently better.
Right. So after we get through this variation, this side would stay pushing on both the forehand and the backhand side, and then we'd switch roles. So now I'd be pushing, Kyle would be lifting here. Okay, same thing. As I push, I want to give myself some more time.
Sorry.
Okay. It doesn't make sense for me to push if I'm getting pushed back. Or, as you can see, actually another way for me to find offense as I'm dinking is actually taking a step back. Gives me time, the ball can sit up a little higher. So as you see here, I can turn a half volley into a ball where the ball sits up a little higher, and I can actually be a bit more offensive with my dink by letting the ball sit a little higher. We would then switch, same sort of idea here. Kyle would go to the forehand side, same thing. I'm gonna be pushing forehands, Kyle's gonna be lifting.
Notice the ball shape from my ball compared to Tyson's, right? A lot more loop. I'm not trying to do much, I'm just trying to stay in the point, get another ball in play. That can win a lot of matches at a lot of levels, just being able to beat your opponent with percentages and shot selection. Okay guys, so to review the concept, again, we're working on, for the type of person that tends to not hold their ground, their first instinct is to resist staying there and wanting to retreat. So with the drill, one person assumes the push dinker, the other person practices lifting and holding their ground. Some of the things that we want to look for are making sure that when we play that volley dink, we've got a little bit of a bend in our elbow. If our elbow is totally locked, it means we're overdoing it on the lean and we're better off either holding our ground or taking that step back to buy time to take the ball off the bounce.
Yeah, no, I think keep the theme of recognizing your what your comfortability is as far as leverage. You know, there's going to be some people that may be a bit more, or maybe at higher levels, you can probably get away with, you know, overleaning a little bit.
Yeah.
I would say lower levels, with the level obviously not being as good, you probably have to be a bit more tucked in. So it's probably it's a bit more level specific. You know, keep in mind a good miss for a lifting dink is always going to be high, right? Obviously, the last thing I want to do is try to hit this, you know, perfect low margin for error dink as a lift, okay?
Hey guys, so we have a really fun game that Tyson and I play that we have for you. If you have an issue with having that instinct to retreat and avoid the volley dink, we've got a game called Exploding Pyramids. And what it does is it really helps teach you to look to take the appropriate ball out of the air and not retreating every time. So the setup is really simple. We've got 3 cones, just maybe about a foot, maybe 8 inches to a foot inside the kitchen line. We've got balls set up on each cone. So when Tyson and I get going here, we're gonna play a dinking game. We're gonna play 1st to 10. Dinks have to land in the kitchen, but if I hit one of his pyramids and hit the ball off, or he hits mine, we actually get 3 points for that. So as we're playing it tactically, if I see that Tyson's giving me more of a pressurized dink going near my cones, rather than instantly retreat, I'm gonna look to stay in and defend my cones here and not allow him to gain that 3 points easily, okay? So this works on a couple of levels. We're trying to work on finding that balance between being consistent with enough height on our dinks up the line, but also at times giving just a little bit more pressure with the ball trajectory to try to put it near our opponent's feet, or in this instance, hit their cones. And then on the 3rd level, what we're really working on is understanding we don't want to have our instinct to go back off the line. We want to hold our ground when it's appropriate, and for this drill, try to defend our cones. Okay? Anything with that, Tyson?
Yeah, I think the main question is, you know, Kyle, it's always, you know, when should I take a step back, right?
Absolutely.
So think about, you know, you should be taking a step back if you find yourself being a little indecisive, maybe you're late on the decision making, or usually it's when you're getting a little overextended. So I think when you find yourself taking the bait, or when you find yourself, you know, in this uncomfortable position, there's nothing wrong with taking a step back. Now, when to take it out of the air would be in that necessary lean range. Necessary, your arm is bent, you're not overextended. This to me is unnecessary, this to me is necessary. So just make sure you're nice and tucked in. Last little thing here, Coach Kyle, would you call this the pressurized zone, you know, of the kitchen? It's a little deeper, you know, I think we talked about, you know, 3.5 feet in. This is our shallow area. We can call this our neutral area, right? And then, you know, let's say like a foot, this little tunnel, a foot out from the kitchen would be the pressurized zone.
Yeah, I think the line right there is right at the start of what I would call the pressurized zone. That's right where it gets very, very tough to decide, do I take this ball out of the air or do I let it bounce? And you'll get a lot of errors from your opponents if you can force them to make that quick decision time and time again. If there's any indecisiveness, there tends to be an error or a weak reply from our opponents when we can find that area there. So we don't want to aim perfectly for the line because it's going to be easier for them to consistently take this ball out of the air, but just inside, daring them to take the bait of over-leaning like Tyson was talking about.
Okay, let's play, man. I'm ready.
Ready to do it.
I'm ready. All
right, Tyson, why don't you go ahead and feed us?
Okay.
Let's do this. Coming for you.
You're not getting in my kitchen.
Look at that lean. Look at that
That was
lean.
a little unnecessary, I'm not gonna lie.
So dinks have to land in the kitchen, remember, guys? So we want to be accurate, make our opponents earn it.
Come on.
But try to add just a little risk to go for that cone. Tyson darn near had my, ah!
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Oh, 3.
Oh, 3.
Oh, 3. All right,
Jeez.
here we go.
That's a 3-pointer?
The 3-pointer. Stay out of there. Stay out of there. Oh, that's wide. I'm taking my 1 point. I'm taking my 1 point. All right, 1-3.
Yeah, so dinks have to land in the kitchen, correct?
In the kitchen, correct.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is tough, I'm not going to lie.
It's not easy to hit the cones, but I got it. I got it.
No.
All right, let's do one more here.
Again.
Yeah, so we got to get a cone back there.
So there's no need to speed up here, correct?
There's no need to speed
Right.
up. We're just working on patience,
Unless you have a lot of pride.
accuracy, right?
Right.
And really trying to dial in our precision and hit the cone if we
Right. So
can.
people who, you know, maybe like to be a bit more premature, like to pull the trigger, know that the main focus of this game is dinking, trying to aim for the cones, really focusing on that pressurized dink. From a counter standpoint, you're looking to lean in, take more balls out of the air. Just make sure that you're focused on the drill and you're focused on all the little pieces within it.